Gear up, because this is the Fuel Your Marketing podcast, designed to accelerate sales and grow your business. Let's welcome your host, Arti Sharma.
Hey everyone, welcome back. There's a lot of talk around smart technology and the disruption that's happening in the digital marketing industry. So one of the biggest technology trends affecting all areas of digital marketing is artificial intelligence. And that's what the topic of this podcast episode is. So artificial intelligence is basically teaching the machine to think and maybe react or act as humans would, right? So it would be kind of, how human brain works. And now we're teaching that to a machine to behave like one. It could be scary, I'll tell you. So when you are on a YouTube and you see these smarter YouTube video suggestions show up after the video ends or just below the video, you know that there is, artificial intelligence, Google's artificial intelligence in action. And one of the things that I want to share with you is that 35% of what people buy on Amazon comes from AI-driven product recommendations. That's a third of Amazon's income. And the beauty of all of this number is that Amazon didn't have to invest anything in driving these sales. Those were all done on site by smartly engaging the current users using the softwares that artificial intelligence allows them to do. So be it an AI-driven email delivery system to engage customers, it's all happening around us, right? There's a lot more that's happening around us. So on this episode, I wanted to leave you with one tactic you may want to consider to test for your website, your marketing initiative, and that's AI-powered chatbots, which are becoming very common. You may have experienced it, and you may like it or you may not like it. I mean, there is two different school of thoughts, and there are pros and cons to each of those. So that's why I use the word you might want to test it and see how that works for you. Now, AI-driven chatbots are really great for from an SEO standpoint, but they can backfire also if they're not kind of engaging enough, if you've not done a good job of giving it a little bit more thought around it. So let's take a deep dive in. And, I've previously also talked about the benefits of using chatbots at a webinar, but, you can have them on your homepage from a lot of different perspectives, such as, optimizing, or even from a kind of, optimizing your customer service experience or sales conversions. But you know what? There's some common things that I see often that companies use chatbots, and they don't use it as effectively as they could. So sometimes this can actually have an adverse effect on your overall use of this tool or to your overall strategy. So today we're going to talk about the pros and cons of chatbots and my take on them and how you can find out if they'll work for you. I mean, again, you'll have to do some testing. We're very data driven. So don't go by just what my experience has been. Do a small test, maybe for 15 days, and see how that works for you and your website. So test it for yourself, okay? Now, it is also a very, I would say, cost-effective tactic because everyone's looking for answers now. So as users, our attention spans are becoming lower. We're becoming more impatient. We want the answers now. And, there's some good tips in this podcast, so keep listening. So how would you utilize chatbots to increase conversions on your website? And that's a question that I get asked a lot. Like, everyone wants to create a more sophisticated user experience, create a kind of a value to their end users or traffic that's coming onto their website, and improve their search engine optimization rankings as a result. Because the more people stay on your website, that means lower the bounce rate. This can allow them to kind of take a meaningful action that, again, Google sees that as a positive trend to kind of gets you the vote of confidence from search engines. So, we definitely want to be on page one of Google, but with this changing so much, there's a whole lot of that we have to be cognizant about, and also at the same time very progressive about because our customers' behaviors are shifting. They're expecting more from us. And, at the end of the day, the strategy that you apply needs to be for your end customers, right? So how do you personalize the visitor experience on your website? That's where chatbots come into play. Many companies use it for customer service experience to answer some frequently asked questions, some basic questions that people may, may, if they don't find them immediately, may just leave the website and go back and search again. So they want to kind of engage that visitor. They've spent money on bringing them to their website. They want to have these visitors stay on their website. So they are kind of becoming more proactive. Think like that. When you walk into a store and you have a salesperson walk up to you right away and say, hey, how can I help you? Rather than you just being in the retail store for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and nobody's bothered. Like, how do you feel? So it's about making your visitors feel special. This is like very similar to that retail experience and taking it online from a customer service standpoint and personalizing it, right? So make sure that you set up a bot that learns from your customers and keeps track of their preferences and their needs so that you can create a more turnkey response for chatbots, right? Some common questions and needs or concerns that they have, perhaps your customers are regularly asking or more frequently asking. You want to keep that in your repository and then start to include that in your chatbot responses so that there is less time spent. Customers feel heard. They feel that you're listening to them, and there's a little bit of an elevated experience for them on your website. So that's where the part of the process comes into play as well from an operational efficiency standpoint. But I also see that chatbots are a great conduit to creating a sales response, especially if you are in a highly competitive industry. You are spending a whole lot of money on bringing people to your website through ad dollars. You want to make sure that there's a bot that kind of starts that conversation, and if you can lead them into speaking to a sales rep, right? So if you're not using the chat bot, but I highly recommend. I've seen some great success. Again, it will have to be tested well to make sure that you're taking that sales experience a notch up on your website from a conversion standpoint also, right? It could backfire, as I said, because some people, depending upon their genre, their demographic, they don't like to speak to machines, right? They like to speak to the voice. So in that case, the chatbot can immediately route and connect the person to your sales rep right away. And that could be a great experience, but it could be a kind of conduit to steering that conversation right away and getting people to talk to each other and say, hey, somebody will be in touch with you in the next 5 minutes. But make sure that efficiency is there, that efficient follow through is there from a chatbot to that human conversation. Because at the end of the day, chatbots and this artificial intelligence is to up-level your experiences for your end consumers. So another way that I find that that we have had success with our clients is by using chatbots for facilitating payments. Now, this is a great tool to help generate more revenue, especially if you're an e-commerce store and you want to facilitate payments and get them to that checkout phase and checkout process. I mean, how many times has this happened with you that you've been on the checkout process page or the checkout page and you get interrupted and then you forget all about it. And imagine if there was a chatbot within maybe a couple of seconds or maybe 4 or 5 seconds of non-activity just shows up and asks them if there's something else that they were looking for and answer that question for them, or at least kind of sends a reminder to say, hey, your goods are still in the cart, right? Is there anything I can help you with? Or are you having trouble checking out? So we found that, in a clunky checkout process, sometimes, you either leave a cart or you haven't made the payment because you got distracted. But now there is a chatbot that may come into play and then help you steer that conversation further, that action further, and, get you to that sale. So don't leave money on the table. You can use chatbots during your e-commerce checkout process as well. And again, as I said, chatbots, there are two different school of thoughts. At the end of the day, you got to see what your audience likes and what they are kind of engaging with, and then start to kind of, move it at a deeper level and maybe introduce more questions or introduce it in various other departments. But if this is something that your audience does not like, then you definitely don't want to go that route. They're not ready for it yet. And you want to make sure that you're always putting your customers first and their interests first, right? So again, we have had some great success, but at the same time, this has also led to increasing the bounce rate on certain websites, because many people who don't like to be using chatbots, then they kind of get put off and they just leave the website, even within a few seconds, and do not go onto the page 2 or 3 or 4, or kind of go further into the website though. So that's not good, because that is a high bounce rate, and bounce rate is another element that search engines consider to validate if your website is meaningful to the end user or not. So you definitely want to kind of make sure that you test it out, do a small test, and see if this is helpful. If it is not, then squash it, move on to the next AI strategy. So with that said, there is a whole lot that happens in the world of online marketing, and there's a lot of disruption that's happening. So you don't want to be leaving the testing around it up to a later date, because AI is being used in a lot of other ways. For example, content engagement. Like, let's talk about business to businesses. So if you are a small retail store or you sell e-commerce, then you have an idea of how to use chatbot. But there could be, a business to business website, something like ours, right? And engaging users with your site has become a really challenging factor now, that content creation seems to kind of, exceed the demand that we have on us as marketers, and consumers are being bombarded with a lot of articles, social media content, videos. So we're kind of creating content, but we also want content engagement, right? And that's where artificial intelligence can come into play to help you engage your site visitors who are getting increasingly kind of, afraid of opting into your social media feeds or subscribing to that newsletter. So artificial intelligence can help you there. It can help your website, as an owner, it can help you to collect your user data and learn to interact with these users exactly when they are most likely to engage. There's a lot of smart content engagement platforms. One of them is Alter. Alter is another smart, as I said, engagement platform which is AI powered and runs without you even having to spend any time to configure it. So what Alter does is it monitors and analyzes your site's user behavior and learns those key behavior patterns to know how to best approach the visitor at a certain given time, right? So integrate some of these smart technologies, test them out, because that's the way to go. And if you're not spending money on testing, if you don't have a marketing budget to test certain things and then measure the data and analyze the data to see where are you headed, your competition will be spending that kind of marketing budget. And, maybe you're going to be falling behind. You may not know this now, but in a few months, you will be like, well, what happened? We were kind of, you see a drop in either your sales or conversions or traffic. So don't wait until that happens. Create a marketing budget to do testing. And the first and simplest way to do is chatbots. So I wanted to kind of bring you this with this episode. And, AI is here to stay. It's the next generation or next stage of disruption that's happening in digital marketing and in other aspects of our lives. So AI is definitely being implemented in marketing. And, as I mentioned, Amazon's a great example. So make use of artificial intelligence to use in your personalized marketing, creating that amazing user experience, increasing your sales, getting people to pay you. And the good news is that marketing software is maturing. So there's a whole lot of other platforms that'll be coming into the marketplace, and it'll become more cost effective. So don't just let cost prohibit you from exploring this. If you need any help on setting up the chatbots or using artificial intelligence to up-level your marketing game, please contact us at www.measuremarketing.net. We'd be happy to have a conversation and help you strategize, plan, execute, and get results. Until then, fuel your marketing and keep taking action. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Fuel Your Marketing podcast. For more episodes, visit www.fuelyourmarketing.com.